Well, hi there. Hello. Welcome back to my channel. I am so excited for today's video because we're going to be doing a reading challenge, a book talk books challenge for a week or a week and a half, depending on how long it takes me to read all of these books. Reading challenges are one of my favorite things to watch on BookTube, so the fact that I get to do some myself, I have a whole list on my notes app of all the book challenges I want to do. There's some I'm really excited for when it comes to be spooky season, like Nick Cutter, Rachel Harrison, like reading only certain authors for a week. However, right now in this moment, I'm still craving a little bit of diversity in my reading genres, so I thought Book Talk famous books would be a good way to go across all genres and get a little taste of everything. Now, little disclaimer, what a book talk book means to me. First and foremost, it means I found out about it or saw the hype for it on TikTok or Bookstagram. They're kind of interchangeable to me, you know what I mean? But I do feel like I get the majority of my recommendations off of TikTok. So I'll just say TikTok for now, but they could be interchangeable. Like sometimes people feel a little offended if you label one of their favorite books like, oh, this is a book talk book, because they feel like maybe that undercuts the seriousness or intensity of the book. But trust, I'm not diminishing anyone's book by labeling it that. It's just a frame of reference for where I found the book first. And the kind of second portion of that is not only did I find it on BookTok, but it overall got positive hype on the app, and they're books that I've had for a little while where either everyone really likes it or it caused a lot of discussion. Sometimes books get really popular because people either love it or they hate it. Long story short, the criteria is I found it on BookTok and it got some sort of hype on BookTok. Now for the first section of this video, we're going to be going over my choices, my selection, accumulated various books from different genres to showcase as book talk books that I've yet to read. And from there, we will pick 5 books and 2 backups in case I DNF one of the 5. Because if you don't know this about me, I DNF at the drop of a hat. I think I DNF'd a book once 2 pages in. So out of 5 books, there's like a 1 in 5 chance that I will DNF it. So I want to have backups. That way I'm not like SOL, you know? So let's start with the options. We will start with basic literary fiction. One of the first books I chose is The Mad Wife. This is making its rounds on TikTok for being sort of a commentary on that trad wife or stay-at-home mom trend. And particularly this is set, I think, in the 60s. And it revolves around the concept of hysteria and basically how 60s housewives were supposed to be perfect, smiling, prim proper, serve their husbands, serve their children. From what I know, this is basically a literary thriller-ish. And yeah, I just heard mostly good things. Some people say they don't get it, but for the most part, I've heard really great reviews. I also have Tomorrow, and Tomorrow. This will be made into a movie, I believe. So I also want to do a reading challenge where I read only upcoming book to movie or book to TV adaptations. So this could be safe for that. I thought this was like a romance, but a lot of people are telling me it's more of a literary fiction with a romance subplot. And it's about 2 friends who were often in love but never lovers, and they come together to make a video game where their success brings them all sorts of actual troubles. And yeah, I feel like this is one of those books that everyone else has read but me. The next option is The Correspondent. This I think just won the women's prize, and it is all over BookTok. Now, I might be slightly biased towards choosing this one because one of the book clubs I want to go to this month is reading this. So obviously it would be great if I would have already read this for this reading challenge. From what I know, it's about an older woman who writes letters to everyone in her life and kind of just seeing her life story and her relationships through letters. So yeah, I'm very curious about this one. And the other book is A Good Person by Kirsten King. Now I feel like this was hyped on BookTok on my side of Weird Girl Lit talk. You know, I'm not sure everyone has read this or everyone loves this, but specifically in that Weird Girl Lit microcosm, this book has been absolutely raved about. I actually don't know much about the plot. I just know that the main character is super unlikable and crazy, which I personally love. Next, I don't have many for science fiction that I thought were like super popular on BookTok. However, I picked 2. The first is This Is How You Lose the Time More. I think this is framed as a novella, but it's almost 200 pages, so it's definitely just like a shorter novel. I'm a little intimidated by this one because I've heard it's very prose heavy and a bit more abstract. It has to do with like a sapphic time travel element. I'm honestly not that sure. I just know people who talk about this either love it or they hate it and don't get it. So I'm curious to see which side I'll fall on. And the other option is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I have read Recursion by Blake Crouch and I thought it was just okay. However, I know this is his most popular book. And I feel like it's one of those books that's just been judging me since ever being on my shelf, you know? Next, let's talk horror thrillers. I kind of combined the 2. The first one is The Chain. I heard about this on BookTok first, and the premise was absolutely wild because it's about a family whose child gets kidnapped, but then they get a phone call saying, hey, in order to get your own child back, you have to kidnap someone else's child. You're now a part of the chain. What? I've been very curious about this ever since I bought it. Next is Pen Pal. I feel like if you've been in the thriller space, you have been recommended this book. From what I know, this is a stalker thriller. I don't know what it is. This cover gives me Slenderman vibes. Anyone else, like, the cover itself is creepy. And yeah, I'm hoping this gives me like that sense of dread I like in a thriller. Next are Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. The main reason why this was blowing up on TikTok from my side was that people were hating the audio, because apparently the main character of this book is a child and she calls her dad Daddo like incessantly, and people were absolutely losing their minds. However, I've also heard that if you read the book versus listen to the audio, it's slightly more bearable. And from what I've heard, the actual plot and creepiness is good. It's just people really hated the Daddo part. So this is one of those books that I've been curious on if I actually like the plot and if I can get over the whole Daddo thing. Next is Mad Mabel. This is probably the book that's been all over my book talk out of all of these, and it's gotten nothing but hype. Not a single review I've seen of this book has been negative. It's about this older woman who's known as Mad Mabel because she murdered someone. And from what I know, it's a dual timeline between when she was younger and how she's older. So yeah, I'm very, very curious about this one, but I feel like it just hasn't called to me. You know, I'm worried it's not going to be as interesting, but we'll see. And the last option is Wolfworm by T. Kingfisher. T. Kingfisher is just like notorious, period. Wolfworm I've heard great things about. From what I know, it's this parasite horror. So I definitely have to be in a certain type of mood for this, but I do love T. Kingfisher. Next, we have our Romantasy Rex. I am very excited about these. First option is Bloodbound. This is a new Romantasy, and from what I know, there's like trials, a fight to the death, and dragons. And yeah, I've heard pretty good things about it so far, so I am very curious. It's a very cool edition as well. I feel like a book that's getting a lot of hype right now is Kissed by the Gods. I got this beautiful edition from L'Oreal. However, I actually picked up the indie paperback version of this book a long time ago because I saw some hype, and I just never got around to reading it. However, I have heard this is very like fantasy heavy, so I don't know if I'm in the mood for that, but I've heard great things. Bare Bones and the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. This, again, out of all the books in this category, might be the biggest book talk sensation, and it's because you either love it or you hate it. People despise this book or they're obsessed. Now, I did read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, and I thought that was very mediocre. However, I didn't mind her prose or her writing style. It was just kind of the story that I wasn't really connecting with. So I'm very open to reading this. From what I know, this is toxic lesbian vampires. That's all I've really heard about the plot. And apparently some people don't like the fact that they're toxic, but maybe I will, so we'll see. And the other option is the Heartstring Duet. This is Crown Me Dead, and I had the second book coming in the mail today. This is an indie book that I feel like, again, is getting popular on my specific side of the romantasy space. And it's a book I feel like is getting so much hype, it could definitely be trad published soon, so I want to get my hands on it and read it before it does. And it's one of the books I'm most excited about on this list. Next, for romance, one of the options I have is In Her Own League by Liz Tom Forty. Apparently this is sort of a standalone spin-off from her Windy City series. I've never read those books. I do want to, but I've also heard you can read this as a standalone, so I feel like I am going to read this as a standalone. It's about a Major League Baseball owner who is female and the field manager who questions her every decision. I've heard there's great literary themes in this book as well as the romance, so very interested. First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. I mean, this is definitely a book talk classic. B.K. Borison is a book talk author, I feel like. I have this book and Now Back to You, and I know they're coming out with their third interconnected standalone of this series. From what I've heard, this is a retelling of Sleepless in Seattle, and I've heard some people found this boring, but for the most part, I've heard people say, like, I never give 5 stars to romance, but this book gave me 5 stars. And I low-key feel like because it might be more heavy on the literary sense, I might like it. Another good one, Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I did read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by her. That one I had a lot of complicated feelings about. However, Atmosphere I feel like is one that's way more beloved. I've seen people sobbing while reading this. I heard this is more historical fiction-y, lesbian in space, NASA, something like that. I am open to reading more of her work. I just sort of question her motives with the way she writes certain characters sometimes, but I have had this on my TBR for so long, so I think it's just about time I read it. And the last option is Archer's Voice. Now this is like a cult classic in the romance space. Like, I'm fully aware this was hyped before BOOKTOK. For some reason, I keep getting reading this book for the first time vlogs on my FYP. So now it's like in the front of my brain. It's a romance between a girl who returns to her small town and a man who is mute. And there's like lots of small town secrets and stuff. So I am very curious about this book. I did grab 2 options from historical fiction, even though it's like my least read genre, but maybe this reading vlog will force me to do it. The first one is The Great Alone by Chris and Hannah. No, I haven't read this yet. I've read The Nightingale and I've read The Women, but not this book. And I feel like this is her most beloved book besides The Nightingale, so I am very excited for it. And the other one is Kin by Tayari Jones. I have this beautiful signed first edition from Goldsboro. This was the Oprah Book Club pick, and then ever since that happened, I feel like it's absolutely exploded on BOOKTOK as well. I'm a little nervous because it's about sisterhood, and because I don't have any sisters, sometimes I feel like I don't connect with sisterly books, but alas, I've heard so many good things that I still want to give it a shot. Oh my gosh, now it's time to choose. Ideally, I would pick one from each genre. but I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna take a minute and go pick my selections. All right, you guys, I picked my 5 main books that I will for sure attempt to read during this next week and my 2 backups. The first book is going to be The Correspondent by Virginia Evans. Like I said, I have a book club that's choosing this book, and honestly, I feel like out of all these books, this is the one I'd want to read next. I'm kind of in that literary fiction mood, so this will be my upcoming read. From the romance genre, I'm choosing First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. I'm half choosing this because I also have that second book that I feel like I want to read this first. And also, I've never read anything by B.K. Borison, and I just want to get on the hype, so this will be my second choice. And from sci-fi, I'm going to read Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. It is just damn well timed. Like, this book is one of the most popular books I feel like ever. Plus, I know there's a TV series of this book. I love being able to read a book and then going on to the TV series. From Romantasy, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. I feel like it would just be an injustice if a BookTok books video and I didn't choose this one out of all the options I had. Like, this is a classic on the BookTok space. I'm very curious to see if I'll love it or I'll hate it. And last, from historical fiction, The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. This is very intimidating to me. It's a thickum book, but I do like Kristen Hanna's writing, so I'm hoping that continues in this book. And again, I know this is so beloved, so I better like it too, or I'm gonna be so upset. For my backups, in case I DNF those books or I just so happen to go through them really fast, I don't know, it's going to be The Heartstring Duet. This is just one of my most anticipated books I'm just itching to get to. I chose Bury Our Bones over this book because I will admit that Bury Our Bones is much more popular than this one right now, but I definitely have FOMO of the people that are reading this and loving it, so this will be my backup. As well as It Sits Around the House by Josh Malerman, and this is partially because I actually got sent an arc of his newest book, Pictures of You, and I also know this is becoming a motion picture soon, I believe. I think it's actually being released this year, so I feel like if any of these books are boring me and I need a thriller to pick me up, this would be a good option. All right, you guys, here's our current stack. Like I said, I think I'm going to start with The Correspondent. I'm going to start that today, and I'll keep y'all updated on this reading vlog as I go along, see if I like these books or not. I think I'm going to give this about 100 pages and then check back in, so I will see you in a second. Hello everyone, it is the next day, and I have finished The Correspondent. I think I'm going to be giving this a 3.5. I definitely have thoughts. I'm going to do a little intro, and then I'm probably going to get into somewhat spoiler territory. My goal is to do non-spoilery reviews as much as I can for the rest of these books, but I do feel like in order to convey why I feel the way I do about this book, I do have to get into some of the details of Sybil's life and kind of how the ending wrapped up to properly tell you guys how I'm feeling. So if you want to go in this book completely blind, I would skip the rest of this part, but if you do so, just know that I gave this a 3.5. There were some parts that I found enjoyable, but overall, I found it a bit lackluster compared to the hype. Okay, so let's get into the full review. I think if perhaps I was part of an older generation or didn't have parental trauma myself, I could have approached this story and our main character Sybil with much more empathy, but honestly, I was annoyed and triggered more than anything for about 80% of this book. I could totally see the point of this book if I take a step back and approach Sybil with the immense amount of grace and understanding she requires, but I found it hard to do so for the majority of the book, honestly. Our main character Sybil deals with a lot of trauma in her life. She was adopted, her adoptive mom goes through cancer and passes away when she's a child, and she goes through child loss of her own, partly which was due to her own negligence. So she keeps everyone, including her then husband and other children, at a distance, and kind of lives a life refusing to take accountability or really own up to her own mistakes or actions. Particularly Sybil's relationship with her adult daughter stirred some deep, profound rage and annoyance within me. Sybil is extremely judgmental of her daughter and seems to view both of her children in the worst light possible. For example, her son gives her a genealogy kit for Christmas, and she describes how she felt humiliated by this gift and basically scolds him for daring to give her this gift. She's always making snarky comments at her daughter about her career life, her marriage, why she's not having children, and even when her daughter does eventually have a child, she talks about how she doesn't like the name of it. And I could go further on about how she treats certain people in her life, particularly her ex-husband who gets sick. But honestly, for a while, it felt like the message I was supposed to be receiving was if you have enough trauma in your life, you can just treat people poorly. And I wasn't really vibing with that messaging. To be fair, Sybil does do good things like housing and at-risk youth and writing to authors and companies to express her adoration, as well as getting a Syrian immigrant a job, even though she initially is racist to him in the beginning, but I guess we're okay with that because she's an older white woman. I don't know. For me, these good deeds just did not make up for her other transgressions. Thankfully, the plot goes the only way that would be somewhat satisfying. Sybil gets sick herself and starts going on basically an apology tour to all the people she's wronged. And they, of course, all forgive her. She finds a new love of her life. She starts traveling and basically just has a happily ever after. I was happy in the end that she owned up to her wrongdoings, but the ending did end up feeling a little bit unrealistic. I will say I enjoyed the letter format a lot, and I actually ended up enjoying the people she was writing to more than Sybil herself, particularly her ex-husband Dan and her new love of her life, Theodore. Their letters were actually very emotion-provoking. So there were some highlights, and I don't despise this book. Overall, it felt like it was just a forgive your elderly relatives, no matter how poorly they treat you propaganda. I don't know, guys, it was just okay. I could see why people like this. Don't get me wrong. And maybe if you don't have the same triggers that I do, if you're able to empathize with Sybil a lot, I could see you absolutely give this a 5-star, 6-star. But I just think for me, there's no amount of trauma, even if you go through terrible, awful things in your life, especially if you have other children, it is your responsibility to continue being a mother. And sure, life is not as simple as what is right and wrong, and people often don't make the right choices. But with the ending, even though it was great, she was apologizing, it still kind of felt like she didn't take accountability for 95% of her life and was able to take a shortcut by the very end and just say, oh, sorry, and all is forgiven and, you know, happily ever after or whatever. So yeah, that is the first review of this challenge. It was just okay. Not my favorite, but we're moving on. I actually ended up reading the first chapter of Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I have this weird problem where if I finish a book, say at like 8 or 9 at night, and I'm gonna be up for a couple more hours, I have to know which book I'm picking up next and maybe read a chapter or two. So that's what I did. I read the first chapter. Quite the opener. The first chapter is like 30 pages, but it's a banger. I'm super curious to see where it will go. I'm already sad for our main character. And yeah, we will see. I'm kind of nervous now that I've read this first chapter. I'm scared it's gonna like tear my heart out. I will say I know for almost a fact that I'm not gonna finish this tonight because I'm about to head to book club. And I'm also gonna be watching the FIFA World Cup tonight. So there's a high likelihood that I'm not gonna finish this, but my goal is to finish this by tomorrow. And I will give y'all the update when I see fit. I'd like to do it at 100 pages, but for you guys, I'll check back in a second. Hello, lovely people. Long time no see. It is the next day. As you can see, I just got out of the shower. I'm getting ready for the day. If I thought I'd give you a little midway update on Dark Matter, I'm on page 152. Let me just say, I did not expect this book to be so emotional. It is hitting me very intensely. I do not cry at books. I think I've shed a tear once out of the like 160 plus books I've read since starting my reading journey. That was at the Nightingale with Chris and Hannah. And so I haven't cried or anything, but I am feeling the emotional weight of this book. It starts out with a man who's having dinner with his wife and son, and he goes out to celebrate a former colleague's success in the realm of science. I should probably tell you his name. Our main character's name is Jason. And this whole thing is basically that he could have been like a big shot scientist, but his girlfriend, who is now his wife, Daniela, got pregnant when they were in college. And so he kind of stopped doing anything super big, had the kid, lives kind of more of a domestic life as a teacher, as a professor. And so though he's overall happy, he's always low-key wondered what it would have been like if he had just pursued his scientific dream. And the friend he's meeting on this particular night is his friend Ryan, who did pursue this scientific dream and kind of has what he does not. So he goes see his friend, congratulate him, and then as he's on his way home, he basically gets kidnapped at gunpoint and taken to this like abandoned hangar or warehouse, injected with some sort of drug, and then he wakes up in a completely different reality. And this book seems to really be exploring like, what if you took a different path in life, and also the complexities of being happy with what you have. And so the main mysteries are, one, who kidnapped Jason and like what's the deal with that, and also this new timeline, this new reality he's in where he's actually a successful scientist that he like enters into, kind of what the deal is with that as well. Anyways, I have gotten past the point where we figured out who this man is that kidnapped Jason, and my jaw was on the floor. I was shook. The reel was truly so good. Honestly, if there's not a happily ever after in this book, I'm gonna be so upset. I'm like low-key scared to finish it because, yeah, like I said, I'm just feeling this emotional weight on my shoulders, and I'm really hoping, fingers crossed, that everything ends up how I want it to. But so far, if I had to rate it right now, I'd give it 5-star. Sometimes when you're reading a book or you just finished it, you know you have that automatic 5-star feeling. Or sometimes you finish a book and you go to write a review, and when I give it a rating, I realize like, oh, there's actually nothing I didn't like about this book. So then I come to the conclusion of a 5-star. Right now, there is nothing wrong with this book. I would give it a 5-star. If it keeps going at this pace, this emotional depth, and if it resolves the way I want it to, I see it being an easy 5-star. I totally see why this book was popular now. But yeah, so today is Sunday. I will probably finish this today, though I do have some other things to do today, including watching soccer, watching Love Island, and I'm going to meet my newborn nephew and have dinner at my brother and sister-in-law's house later today. So I will be a little bit busy, but the goal is to finish this today, and then we'll see how I feel after. My gut is telling me that I might read the romance that I picked for this challenge because I think I need something a little more lighthearted. The stakes a little bit lowered after reading this. But yeah, that is my update. Overall, I'm really enjoying it, sort of. I mean, the enjoyment is questionable, but I really appreciate the impact this book is having on me so far. And I will see y'all once I finish Dark Matter. I finished Dark Matter, and wow, that was a lot more emotional and impactful than I thought it was going to be. It's a perfect example of one of those books that was published almost a decade ago and has been on your physical TBR for ages, and when you pick it up, you're like, why did I not read this sooner? I am giving this a 4.75. A very basic summary of this is a family man gets kidnapped randomly one night and sent to an alternate reality and desperately tries to get back to his wife and his son and his life. People weren't wrong when they say that there's a strong love story element to this book, but for me, that made the stakes all the more intense. This book gave me the message to appreciate what I have, to find joy and love in the mundane, and to realize there's many people who would love to have the life that you have. There's a line in this book after this guy has been searching for his wife and son, and he just feels so defeated, and he's in his neighborhood and he's watching people arrive home from work and go into their houses, and he thinks what a miracle it is to have people to come home to. And that was just such a gut punch. And it's truly so true. These things we take for granted, the simple act of coming home to somebody, whether you're married or you're living with your parents or you have children, that you have someone in your life who you love enough to want to see every day. It's just beautiful. Now, the reason why I'm giving this a 4.75 and not a complete 5-star, even though initially after I finished it, I was like, 5-star. After I slept on it, I think I agree with other reviewers who say that the characters in this book, particularly our main character Jason's wife and his son Charlie, could have been fleshed out more and therefore led to even more depth to the story. We know them enough to make this story enjoyable, but I think in particular with his son Charlie, we do see Jason interact and see a lot of versions of his wife Daniela, but we don't get a lot of detail or see many versions of his son Charlie. And I just wish we got to know him on a deeper level. But that being said, overall, Dark Matter, a stellar book and a great result of this challenge. I am very happy that I finally read this book. It was great. So for my next book, after that being a little bit dark and twisty, I decided to pick up First Time Caller. This is the Jess Jacket because I have the book over on my couch and I'm being lazy. This is a retelling of Sleepless in Seattle in a romance format. I have seen the most stellar reviews for this book and I've also seen people despise it. So I'm very curious to see where I fall. I know B.K. Borison is so beloved in the romance community. I'm quite excited to start this. I will say after I finish this book, I do have one arc I have to read before it gets published this week because I try to read and review all arcs I receive, or at least attempt to read. There have been arcs where I start it and I DNF it. So for me, as long as I'm at least trying to read it before the publishing date, that counts. And so I have a book called Death Do Us, which seems to be a weird girl lit, maybe literary horror of this woman who gets engaged, but then as she gets closer to her wedding date, things start just going wrong. And I believe that's being published on the 25th, I think is what it said. So I will have to read that and review that after I finish this. But then we'll get back on schedule. I'm thinking I'll start Burial Bones and Midnight Soil because I'm craving a little bit of fantasy. And after that will be The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna, which I am nervous for. It's my most intimidating book, but we're gonna do it. I'll let you guys know how I'm feeling about First Time Caller, and I'll see y'all at my next check-in. Well, hi, hello. I was not expecting to see you so soon. It's been like 2 or 3 hours since I last turned on this camera. I am 50 pages in to First Time Caller, and I think I'm DNFing. Low-key feel like I knew this was coming because I read the first couple of pages last night after I finished Dark Matter, and it wasn't hitting. It wasn't like grabbing me in, but I put it away because I was like, well, maybe I'm just in the afterglow and the amazingness that was Dark Matter, and I can't like jump into a new book right now. So I said to myself, tomorrow I'll give it a fair shot. And for me, 50 pages is a fair shot. I don't know what your guys' DNF rules are. I DNF at the drop of a hat. I can DNF 2 pages in, okay? And that like is fine for my psyche. I just don't think the writing's for me. It comes off really cheesy and almost maybe millennial. The main male character's name is Aiden, and he's just such a stereotype. Oh, he almost doesn't feel like a real person, which is funny because when you go to the good reviews of this book, everyone's like, this is such a real book. And for me, I'm like, I've never met this person in real life. He's all disgruntled by love, and it really does play like a rom-com. And so if that's what you're looking for, that's great, but I still like a level of realism in my romance books, I guess, like my contemporary romance. I just wasn't believing our characters, even Lucy. I could definitely see this being made into a movie or something, or like a TV show. That's how it almost feels to me, but not in a way that I'm liking. and I really am not motivated to continue. And this book is like around 400 pages for a romance novel. And from the other negative reviews I saw, not a lot happens. It's just them making excuses for why they can't be together. And I don't know. Yeah, I'm not vibing. I'm so sorry if you love this book. I'm definitely open to reading more B.K. Borison. I know they're one of the most popular romance authors out there. They're coming out with a Christmas novel called Grim Tidings, which is like super hyped up right now. So I'm definitely excited for that. And I still have Back to You, which is the second book in this interconnected standalone. And I'm going to read that as well. So we shall see, but this did not hit for me. Putting it down. Now, like I mentioned, I'm not gonna be picking up the next book in this vlog yet. I am gonna be finishing this arc, which is Death Do Us. However, once I finish that, I will pick up Bury Our Bones and Midnight Soil. I'm also a little terrified of this because it is close to 500 pages. Now, it is technically a paranormal romance, romantasy. So those type of books can get to this length, but I'm very hesitant with V.E. Schwab because of how I did not like The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Sometimes her books I feel can become a bit repetitive and a little too long. There's so much love for this book and also a lot of vitriol. And I'm curious to see where I fall. So you will see me again once I have started this book and I have some thoughts. For me, it might be a day or two. For you, it'll be right now. Hello everyone. It is the next day. My hair is super greasy. I don't got any makeup on. But let's talk about Bury Our Bones and the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. I am 150-ish pages in. Oh, never mind. I'm 120 pages in. And I did realize after I read the actual description on the cover that technically vampires are not mentioned in that thing. So like, sorry if that was a spoiler. However, in literally all of the marketing for this book, it's just toxic lesbian vampire. I just feel like the vampiric element has never been hidden and like never been a surprise. My bad if it was, but again, this book also has been out for like a long time. So in my opinion, knowing it's a vampire story has not like taken away anything from the enjoyment of the story. Alas, apparently the story has 3 timelines. I've only read 2, one set in the 1500s and one set in 2019. But apparently there's a third one set in 1820s. And like with most books that have a dual timeline, I am finding myself more invested in the 1500s plot versus the 2019. I think the 1500s plot has a lot more feminine rage, and you know, back in those days, obviously women have a lot less rights. You meet a woman named Maria who is kind of this fiery, stubborn woman and does not fit in with the time. And she gets married off to this rich husband that is an absolute ass until a mysterious, alluring woman offers her a way out. And then you have the woman named Alice, who is in modern day 2019, is a college student, just freshly 18, who comes from Scotland and is grieving the death of her mother. And the parts I read so far were her at a party where she also meets an alluring woman. So honestly, not a ton has happened in that 2019 timeline. In the 1500 timeline, things have happened, which I'm very excited about. But I do find myself very not interested in Alice's whole point of view. I hope it gets better. Though I have seen from some reviews that people don't like Alice in general. So I don't know if that timeline will just never get better or what it'll be. But so far, I am into it. One thing I will never take away from V.E. Schwab is her prose. I really adore her prose overall. Even when I read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which I did not super enjoy, I loved her prose. Her prose really keeps you reading. So even if the plot isn't doing much, you want to keep reading because the story is engaging and the prose is somewhat lyrical without being verbose and feels very grounded. Yes, I think that's all I have to say for now. It is just about noon, so I have, you know, however long from now to when I go to bed to read. And that's all I'll be doing. There's nothing better than like getting all of your errands and chores done in the morning, showering, changing into clean pajamas, and now I get to throw on the FIFA World Cup and read the rest of the day. It's just the best feeling. That is what I'll be doing. I will let y'all know another update if I have one. All right, you guys, I am on page 236. And I really am thinking about DNFing. I really am. Nothing is happening. And it's kind of driving me insane. And when something does happen, it's just so repetitive. It's not relevant. And I think the word that's coming to my mind is it's just so low stakes. But it's set up in an environment where it feels like there should be stakes. And that's what's throwing me off. Like if I went into this thinking this is a cozy fantasy, there's going to be little to no stakes, that's different. But I went into this thinking there was going to be just maybe some debauchery, some evilness, some craziness. And it's just like, blah. I don't know. I posted something on Fable being like, y'all, does this get better? Do things happen? And I had someone comment and then it literally lit up a light bulb in my head. They said, no, nothing really happens. It's mostly vibes, no plot. And that is the description for this book so far. just vibes. Vibes are great. Again, I still really love the prose as well, but I'm just not interested. And I'm not sure I'm invested enough in these characters to keep going for another 250 plus pages. I also think I thought the vampire part of this was going to be a bit more like the other vampire books I've read, where there's a lot more obsession and possession. And, the problem I'm running into is the vampires in this book are not trained onto like one person or getting involved in one relationship. They're just bouncing from one to the next or getting invested and then killing them really fast. There's no buildup of tension. There's no buildup of relationship for me. So therefore my investment is little to none because they're not investing in anything. And if that's the way that V.E. Schwab wants to write her vampires, that's fine. I just don't know if that's for me then. Because I need them to start being invested in someone so I can be invested in someone. At almost halfway in, I have still not gotten to this London 1800s timeline. And who knows, maybe that timeline would be really interesting to me and things would happen. But I have not gotten there. I'm just still in this sort of 1500s and then the modern day timeline. And I'm still very much not interested at all in the modern day timeline. And now the older timeline's losing me. And I keep telling myself to push on, push on, push on. I mean, you see these indent marks in my nose? That's from my glasses where I've been trying all day to keep reading. And I want to keep reading for this vlog because I ideally don't want to DNF these books, but I also don't want to be untrue to myself and put myself in a reading slump. I mean, I did get those backup books to replace my DNFs, so here's what I think I might do. Because of how much non-action there are in this book and how much the plot is not interesting me, I think I'm going to pick up our backup thriller, Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. Like I mentioned in the intro, what I know about this book is that a lot of people do not like the audio because the child who is the narrator of the story says the word dado. However, I will be reading the physical book, and I've heard if you can get past the whole dado thing, that the actual thrill and scariness of it is good. I'm really hoping that a thriller will pull me out of this nothing is happening slump. I think I'm making the decision to officially DNF this, even though I'm literally almost halfway in, which I really hate investing my time into something. That's why I DNF so quickly normally, because I'm like, why would I invest my time? It's going to piss me off. And this has pissed me off a little bit because you took my entire afternoon of reading from me, Miss V.E. Schwab. Now, will I pick up another of V.E. Schwab's books, even though I have not liked both of the books I picked up by her? Yes, because I have her book Vicious on my shelf that I've heard is very good. So I'm going to give her one more try. One more. At another date. But for now, we're DNFing and we're picking up Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. And I'll let you know how it goes in a little bit. Well, hello. Funny seeing you here. I am here to talk about Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. I finally finished it. This took me 2 or 3 days to finish. I don't know. I feel like dark matter put me into some sort of weird reading slump. I think I'm back. I think I'm ready to keep going, but it took me a little bit. I am still processing how I'm feeling about this book. Normally, I will write out my reviews on a Google Doc, and then I'll copy and paste into Goodreads and Fable, just so I can have a set place where I can write out my thoughts. But I have not done that yet, so I have nothing to reference. I'm just going off the cuff. My gut is telling me somewhere between a 3.5 and a 3.75. Definitely nowhere near a perfect book. However, I think the biggest thing this has going for it is the fact that I was genuinely creeped out multiple times. I guess I should give you a little rundown on what this book is about. It's from the perspective of an 8-year-old girl, and she lives with her mom and dad who have a dysfunctional, kind of toxic marriage. Though it's mostly the mom. The mom is the one causing all the problems in the marriage. And at night, in this little girl's room, out of the closet comes an entity known as Other Mommy, who constantly asks this little girl if she can go into her heart in order to swap places with the little girl and reincarnate. And so as the story goes on, you are following this 8-year-old's perspective on not only her family dynamics, but also the fact that this other mommy is getting tired of having to ask this child, can I go into your heart? And this child is very worried on what happens if she just finally says yes. Other Mommy is terrifying. The way Josh Malerman describes it, the scenes that it's involved in, I was genuinely spooked, okay? I really was. The little girl pissed me off. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like because I don't have children sometimes that my empathy meter towards children is more lackluster than others. And obviously this is an 8-year-old child, so they're going to do things that you would not agree with. They're going to do things that don't make sense because they are an 8-year-old. However, it still pissed me off. And that's just how I feel, all right? Also, the parents of this book, specifically the mom, she is diabolical, and I have little to no empathy for her at all, even though it low-key feels like we're supposed to by the end of the book. I really don't like when that happens, when an author writes an unlikable character and tries to give them a character arc, but the arc is not well done. that annoys me. There's also a character named Grandma Ruth in this book that I really liked, but the very ending of this book involves her in some sort of way, and I felt like it was very unfinished. It was very not fleshed out. And I kind of have a problem with the ending itself. I don't fully grasp what Josh Malerman was trying to prove or trying to say, and it definitely felt like there was some sort of plot holes going on. So yes, did it creep me out? Did it scare me? Did it horrify me at times? Yes, which is credit to this book. However, the actual plot, especially towards the end, and the characterization of the majority of people in this book weren't really to my taste. I know a lot of people hate this book because the 8-year-old child calls her dad Daddo. Every single time, the word Daddo has to be used in this book like 1,000 times minimum. However, I will say, once I read it enough, it kind of just reflected back to me as dad in my reading brain, so it didn't really bother me that much. But yeah, it is kind of just one of those things that if you can't get over, you're not gonna get over it, period. The more I talk about it, I think I'm gonna give it a 3.5. I feel like that's fair. It was a little creepy, it was a little spooky, but overall, just kind of All right, and now we have one more book for this reading vlog, and you guys, I need you to not be mad at me. I kind of went off cuff, I kind of went off script. Technically, the next book should have been The Great Alone by Chris and Hannah, but y'all, I have not read a romantasy in like over a week, and I really need some romantasy in my life. When I feel a slump coming on or that I'm just not motivated to read, romantasy is what pulls me out of it. So we're going to save Chris and Hannah for another time, another vlog. I am so sorry. Please don't be too mad. Instead, we are picking up that other substitute option, which is Crown Me Dead by Liv Zander. This is a dark fantasy romance. I'm already a couple chapters in. When I say that this book is grody, it's grody because our main character and her family are gravediggers and basically morticians, funeral directors, all in one, but they live in this society where there is blight and rot. So people are dying constantly and it's very gross. Like all the descriptions of maggots, pus, dead bodies, it's a lot. Right now, up to the part where she gets approached by what I am assuming is the MMC or is a representative for the MMC, giving her an offer to be the queen for this king that is like this cursed ruler in order to help her brother survive. I'm honestly a little confused on the magic / political system of this world right now. However, I'm only a few chapters in, so we're giving it some grace. So far, I'm really enjoying the prose. I'm enjoying the writing. This is an independently published book, and it's really having a moment on BookTok right now, so I really wanted to get into it. It is a completed duology. It is quite short for a romantasy, as you can see. So I do have the second book. I'm debating on whether or not I finish this book and wrap up the vlog, or if I read the second book and complete the duet. I feel obviously it would be better to complete the duet because I can give you my full thoughts on that completed duology. However, if I feel like it's going to take me a long time to get through the second book, then I might just stick with the first one because I'm not gonna lie, I want to wrap this reading vlog up because I have another reading challenge I want to already get to. It is really big fingers crossed I finish this today, and then I will check in and let y'all know if I'm going to just move on to the next book and keep you updated, or if I'm going to end the vlog there. Off into the world of dark fantasy romance I go. Okay, it's about 10 o'clock at night. I did not think I'd have an update for you so soon, but I really do want to wrap this reading vlog up, and I finished Crown Me Dead by Liv Zander, and thankfully I don't need to figure out if I'm going to finish this vlog with just this book or if I'm going to read the duet and then talk to you guys about it, because I will not be continuing on with the second book. So yeah, once again, like with our previous book, I have not sat down and thought out my thoughts on this book yet, so my thoughts right now are going to be a bit all over the place, a bit spontaneous, so bear with me. For the first 30% of this book, I was low-key thinking about DNFing or basically just saying that this book is not for me. This is titled A Dark Fantasy Romance, and for the first like 30%, it's just a like dark fantasy horror. This book is so fucking gross, especially for the first 30%, you guys. Trigger warning, maggots, pus, pustules. I literally just actually gagged saying that word. Ooh, no. Death, rotting, just the most grossest imagery you can think of is in this book. It's disturbing. And sure, a dark fantasy romance can be dark, but I just don't necessarily equate dark with gross. You know what I mean? So I was definitely just thrown off guard a little bit. And that's the thing is, I've read fungal horror, bug horror, where like these types of things happen, but I think I'm just more emotionally prepared for it in that case, whereas going to this, no one warned me at all. So this is your warning, girl. Also, our FMC kind of annoyed me. There is a love triangle in this book. It's not my favorite trope. I prefer, if there's going to be multiple love interests, a why choose, or a very firm love triangle where one choice is more obvious. That's just my preference. I hate to see the people that I'm reading for get hurt. And so in this love triangle though, you are going to be rooting for one particular person and she ends up not getting with them, at least in this book. I don't feel like that's really a spoiler because you don't know who I'm talking about. I don't know. Whatever. She gets with the other guy intimately, which the spice scenes are hot, but I couldn't really enjoy them because they weren't with the person I was reading for. And when I look at the reviews, everyone's like, the ending of this book, like, I'm running to the second book, my jaw's on the floor. It just didn't really do much for me. I don't know, guys, I'm really disappointed. This has been so hyped over on BookTok. I'm really trying to settle on what I might rate this. I feel like a 3 star is almost too harsh, but at the same time, it feels right. I know for a lot of people, a 3 star is like middle of the road. They like the book averagely. For my personal rating system and the way that I read books and finish books, a 3 star is like, I had some pretty strong issues with this book. I didn't hate it, but I don't know if I'd recommend it to other people, and it was certainly not for me. And even though the 3 star feels harsh, it also feels right for what I just described. So yeah, I'm thinking 3 star. That sucks, dude, because I have the second book as well. I guess I'll be selling these on my Pango. So, you know, my links down below if you want to buy these off of me and see if you like it yourself. These books, this duet has fantastic reviews. So don't take it from me. If you're into horror romance, if you're into love triangles where the FMC might get with the douchey guy, not the lover boy, then you might certainly like this. It's just not for me. And I'm glad I read it because I was having a lot of FOMO over BookTok, and now I don't have FOMO. I know that I'm not missing out on anything. So yeah, that is my feelings about Crown Me Dead, unfortunately. Kind of a weird way to end this vlog. But yes, we had some highs, we had some lows. Okay, I'm gonna look at my phone on Goodreads so we can just do a little wrap up before I say goodbye. So out of this challenge, I DNF'd 2 books. That was First Time Caller by B.K. Borson and Bare Bones and Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. So I guess if I'm trying to do a lineup of from the books I like the least to the most, those are my DNFs, so those are the books I like the least. Now, the books I finished are 4 books: The Correspondent, Dark Matter, Incense Around the House, and Crown Me Dead. I haven't officially reviewed and rated these recent 2 books, like I said, but I think, based off of the ratings I think I'm going to give the other books, Crown Me Dead's going to be the book I like the least. That is honestly shocking to me. I did not think that was going to happen. So out of the books I finished, the book I liked the least was Crown Me Dead at 3 star. I think we're then going to go with Incense Around the House by Josh Malerman. I think I've settled on a 3.5. And then we're going to go The Correspondent by Virginia Evans. I've also got that 3.5, but honestly, Incense Around the House and The Correspondent are very much tied. Like, they're tied for the same place. They're kind of interchangeable. But the best book I read out of this challenge by a mile, Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. That book was phenomenal. It was worth it, this entire vlog, just to get to read that book finally for the first time. But other than that book, everything was kind of mid. Oh my gosh. I mean, I guess that was kind of the test, right? To see if BookTok was giving me actually good recommendations. And in this case, it kind of didn't. It gave me 1 stellar book and the rest were either mid, or I didn't like, or I DNF'd. Yikes. That being said, I am more than happy to do another BookTok, Bookstagram reading challenge. They're really fun, and that way you get to read across all genres, so I will definitely do it again. However, I am eager to finish this vlog because I want to start my next reading vlog, which is going to be all arcs for a week. And that's because I have 5 physical arcs that are being published July 7th and 1 physical arc that's being published June 30th. And I am someone who really tries to read my arcs before they're published, because otherwise I like low-key feel like, what's the point? Like, the whole idea is to have an advanced reader copy so I can review in advance, right? And I've been slacking, especially with this reading challenge. I've been slacking on my arcs. So we're going to do a whole week worth of arcs. I hope y'all are excited. And that way I can also let y'all know of these new releases, what's actually worth your time and what you should go out and buy. You feel me? You dig? I'm excited for it. But anyways, that's going to be the end of this reading vlog. I hope you enjoyed. If you're interested in joining my completely online Fable book club, Let's Get Literate, click the link down below. And thank you so much for watching. It's been so lovely to have you here. I hope you have a wonderful day, night, wherever you are, and I hope you get to read something absolutely stellar, scrumptious very soon. And I will see y'all in the next video. Bye.